very ominous signs for him, although interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence. But
how many people came through his orbit? How many people could this have happened to? And how did he get away with it for so long?
We've all heard the whispers, the half-jokes in interviews, the late-night talk show punchlines that never quite landed because the truth was too close to the surface. But what happens when the quietest rumors, the ones that made even the boldest insiders lower their voices, suddenly aren't rumors anymore? What happens when the man who built an empire on control loses it all in a single calculated strike? That's the question hanging over Hollywood right now, because while the world was distracted by courtroom drama and tabloid headlines, someone was playing a much longer game. And if the sources we've spoken to are right, Sean "Diddy" Combs isn't just facing prison time. He's been trapped in a legal and reputational minefield so meticulously planned that escape isn't just unlikely, it's mathematically impossible.
Well, the things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
The first move came years ago, long before the raids, before the lawsuits, before the damning footage of Cassie Ventura surfaced. While Combs was still untouchable, still the kingmaker of hip-hop and high-end parties, a small group of victims, silent for decades, were quietly connecting with a team of attorneys. Not just any lawyers, but the kind who specialize in taking down the powerful. The kind who don't flinch when threats are made. Funding for their cases didn't come from crowdsourced campaigns or sympathetic donors. It came from a single, determined source, someone who knew exactly where the bodies were buried. Literally and figuratively. 7 victims, 7 cases, all waiting for the right moment to strike. And that moment wasn't a leak or a scandal. It was a coordinated legal ambush. By the time Combs realized what was happening, the paperwork was already filed, the depositions scheduled, the evidence locked in. There would be no settlements, no quiet payoffs. This wasn't about money. It was about time. But the second move? That's where the business world got involved. Because while Combs was fighting lawsuits, someone was buying up every post-release opportunity he had lined up. Record deals, brand partnerships, even the whispers of a comeback tour. All of them gone. Not canceled, purchased. By the time the sentencing discussions began, there was nothing left for him to return to. No industry lifelines, no sympathetic executives willing to gamble on a comeback. The message was clear. This isn't just about prison. It's about erasure. In the most chilling part, the purchases started 2 years ago. This wasn't reactionary. It was strategy.
So we just got this new audio from the Diddy trial, and it is pretty explosive. This is audio of a voicemail that Diddy left to the Jane Doe who's been testifying in this trial for the last couple days. And he sounds really annoyed. He's talking about her maybe giving him the silent treatment, and his response is, I got a busy life, I can't be dealing with your silent treatment, and we got to keep it moving. He says, you need to get back on your job.
Now, let's talk about the third move, the one that ensures Combs stays behind bars long after the headlines fade. Because while the public focuses on the freak-off tapes and the 1,000 bottles of what prosecutors allege wasn't baby oil, insiders tell us there's another layer. Dozens of interviews recorded over the past decade from people Combs allegedly manipulated, threatened, or worse. These aren't just accusers. These are former friends, industry veterans, even a few names you'd recognize instantly, and they're not waiting for a trial. They're waiting for the right moment to speak, when the legal noose is already tight, when the public is already convinced, when the last shred of doubt has been erased. Because in a system where power protects power, the only way to break that cycle is to make the cost of silence higher than the cost of speaking up.
And I think Sam Bankman-Fried were in the unit that was one floor above mine. So in terms of like the setting, it's a fairly decent chance that the room I'm describing is similar to where Diddy is.
Meanwhile, as Combs' world collapses, another storm is brewing. One that ties directly into the same web of secrecy and control. Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith have spent years carefully curating their public image, even as the rumors about their marriage grew wilder, darker, and more persistent. The entanglement with August Alsina? That was just the tip. Because according to multiple sources inside their circle, the real story isn't about infidelity. It's about a lifestyle that blurred lines in ways that even Hollywood's most jaded insiders found shocking. We're talking about allegations of organized intimate gatherings, of invitations extended to other high-profile couples, of a dynamic so carefully hidden that those who knew stayed silent, not out of loyalty, but out of fear. And now, with Smith facing his own misconduct lawsuit from violinist Brian King Joseph, the questions aren't just about one incident in a Las Vegas hotel room. They're about a pattern. Let's break down what we know. Joseph's lawsuit doesn't just accuse Smith of inappropriate behavior. It paints a picture of grooming, of a power dynamic so lopsided that even the most basic boundaries were erased.
We got it. Oh, we're black. I'm sorry. What do you say about the allegations? There's like so many rumors. Anything you want to say? We suing.
A handwritten note left in his room, signed Stone F. Hospital discharge papers from an unknown individual. A red backpack. And perhaps most damning, the way Smith's team allegedly turned on Joseph the moment he spoke up, accusing him of lying, of fabricating the entire incident. But here's the thing. Joseph isn't the first. He's not even the second. Because while the public was fixated on the Oscar slap, on the memes and the think pieces, other voices were emerging, quietly, cautiously, about what really goes on behind closed doors in the Smith household. And the names being whispered, they're not just random accusers. They're people who've been in that inner circle, people who've seen things they can't unsee. Now, let's connect the dots. Because while Smith's legal team scrambles to discredit Joseph, another lawsuit, this one against Jada, has resurfaced. Bilal Salam, a former associate, claims Jada approached him with threats of violence, demanding he sign an NDA at a private gathering. The timing? September 2021. The location? A movie theater in Calabasas, during a private screening for Will's birthday.
Yeah, and let me just say this. It's ridiculous, right?
The details are murky, but the implication is clear. This wasn't just about silence, it was about control. And when you start to look at the bigger picture, the rumors about Dwayne Martin, the allegations from brother Bilal, the way Jada herself has openly discussed the unconventional nature of her marriage, what emerges isn't just a story about a celebrity couple, it's a story about a system, one where power isn't just used, it's weaponized. But here's where things get even more complicated, because while Smith and Jada navigate their own scandals, another player has entered the game, one who's been waiting in the wings for years. 50 Cent's documentary on Diddy isn't just a tell-all, it's a detonation.
That footage ended up going to 50 Cent and his production company, and it's kind of the centerpiece.
Sold to them.
Yes, was the centerpiece of the documentary. So watch this particular scene, because this is where a lot of people feel Diddy really screwed over someone that he should be very, very thankful for.
And the footage he secured? It doesn't just implicate Combs, it drags other names into the fire. Names like Prince Harry, who allegedly turned down repeated invites to Combs' infamous gatherings. Names like Jennifer Lopez, who's been tied to Combs for decades, and whose own career has thrived in the same circles where these allegations festered. And then there's the bigger question. If Combs' parties were as widespread as insiders claim, if the tapes are as damning as prosecutors suggest, how many other careers are built on the same silence? Let's talk about the tapes. Because while the public fixates on the Cassie Ventura footage, the real bombshell might be what's still hidden. The male companion who turned over his recording to federal prosecutors? His story lines up with what others have described. Private jets, high-end hotels, encounters that were anything but consensual. And the substances? According to sources, they weren't just recreational. They were part of the control. A way to ensure compliance, to blur lines, to make sure that by the time someone realized what was happening, it was too late to walk away. Now, multiply that by dozens of alleged victims, by years of silence, by an industry that looked the other way because the music was too good, the parties too exclusive, the access too valuable.
It wasn't only Big, it wasn't only Tupac, you understand? For the atmosphere that he put those kids in, you got a guy named Anthony Wolf Jones, who was from Bad Boy, from its conception as doing security and being one of the financiers of Puff having to have some money to keep Big and Craig Mack around.
And what about the mothers? Because while the world debates Combs' guilt or Smith's innocence, there's another layer to this story, one that doesn't get nearly enough attention. The mothers of Biggie Smalls and Wolf, the women who lost their sons to the same industry that protected their abusers, the way Combs allegedly billed Biggie's funeral expenses to his estate, the way he turned grief into leverage. These aren't just footnotes. They're the foundation of the anger that's been building for decades, because when you strip away the fame, the money, the power, what's left is a simple, brutal truth. Some people's careers were built on other people's tragedies, and the ones who paid the highest price never got to tell their side. Now, let's bring it back to the present. Because while Combs awaits sentencing, while Smith's team prepares their defense, while Jada's memoir tries to rewrite the narrative, there's a sense that we're standing at the edge of something bigger. The documentary isn't just about one man's downfall, it's about an entire system's reckoning. And the question isn't just what Diddy did or what Will and Jada allegedly hid. It's about who else knew, who else benefited, who else stayed silent because the alternative was too risky, too costly, too dangerous. Because in Hollywood, power isn't just about what you can do. It's about what you can get away with. And right now, for the first time in a long time, the rules have changed. But here's the thing about traps. They're only effective if the person walking into them doesn't see the wires. And if the sources we've spoken to are right, Combs never stood a chance. Because the person pulling the strings wasn't just angry. They were patient. They understood that in a world where scandals fade in a news cycle, the only way to ensure real consequences is to make sure there's no way out. No loopholes, no second chances, no comeback tour. Just a cell, a number, and the slow, inevitable unraveling of everything he built. And as for Will and Jada, the lawsuit from Brian King Joseph might be the first domino, but it won't be the last. Because when you've spent years cultivating an image of openness, of progressive values, of being woke before it was trendy, the fall is that much harder when the truth comes out. And the truth, as we're learning, isn't just about one incident in a hotel room. It's about a lifestyle, a dynamic, a A marriage that, according to those who've been inside it, was never what it seemed. So where does that leave us? With an industry on the brink, with careers hanging in the balance, with a public that's finally starting to ask the right questions, and with one inescapable reality: the era of silence is over. The question now isn't whether the truth will come out, it's who will be left standing when it does. Because in Hollywood, power is everything. But right now, for the first time in a long time, the powerful are the ones who should be afraid. And if the past few weeks have taught us anything, it's that the reckoning has only just begun. The tapes are still out there, the victims are still talking, and the people who thought they were untouchable, they're about to learn just how wrong they were. Because when the trap is this well set, when the evidence is this damning, when the public is finally paying attention, there's no such thing as a clean getaway. Not this time, not anymore. And the man who set the trap, he's not done yet. In fact, if the whispers are true, he's just getting started. Because the real question isn't about what's already been exposed. It's about what's still hidden. And if the past is any indication, the worst is yet to come.
Did you ever spend time with the guy? Did you ever meet Diddy?
I've met him before, yeah.
How was he?
Very nice guy, very smart, super business. You know, I mean, he's.
But what if this isn't just revenge? It's exposure. Because the moment Diddy's empire started to crumble, something else began to unravel too. The same patterns, the same whispers, the same carefully constructed facades that kept the powerful untouchable for decades. And if we've learned anything from the past few weeks, it's that the fall of one king doesn't just leave a throne empty, it reveals who else was sitting at the table, who else benefited from the silence, who else has been waiting for the right moment to slip away unnoticed. Because while the world fixates on Diddy's legal battles, another story is unfolding in the shadows, one that ties directly into the same web of influence, the same culture of complicity, and the same unspoken rules that governed Hollywood's elite. Let's start with the Smiths, because if we're being honest, the lawsuit from Brian King Joseph isn't just about one violinist's experience on tour. It's about a dynamic that insiders have described for years, a dynamic that allegedly wasn't limited to Will Smith alone. The handwritten note, the unfamiliar belongings, the way Smith's team turned on Joseph the moment he spoke up. These aren't isolated incidents. They're echoes of a system. And according to multiple sources who've spent time in their inner circle, the Smith household operated under a set of rules that would shock even the most jaded Hollywood observers. We're talking about allegations of organized, intimate gatherings, of invitations extended to other high-profile couples, of a lifestyle so carefully curated that those who knew stayed silent, not out of loyalty, but out of necessity. Because in a town where careers are made and broken on whispers, the wrong word could mean the end of everything. Now, let's connect this to the bigger picture. Because while the public fixates on the entanglement with August Alsina, on the Oscar slap, on the carefully staged interviews where Jada and Will redefine their marriage on their own terms, there's another layer. One that involves names like Dwayne Martin, like Bilal Salam, like the young artists who allegedly left their mentorship programs in distress. The rumors aren't just about infidelity. They're about a culture where boundaries were fluid, where consent was implied, where the line between professional guidance and personal exploitation was deliberately blurred. And if we're looking for a parallel to Diddy's world, we don't have to look far. Because the same mechanisms that protected Combs, the same mix of fear, favor, and financial leverage, are the ones that kept the Smiths' secrets buried for years. But here's where things get even more unsettling. Because while the Smiths navigate their own scandals, another name keeps surfacing, one that ties directly into the same network of power and silence: Jennifer Lopez. For years, she's been linked to Diddy, both professionally and personally. And while the public focuses on their past romance, on the music collaborations, on the red carpet appearances, insiders tell a different story. One that involves the same parties, the same gatherings, the same unspoken rules that governed Combs' world. Now, we're not saying she was involved in anything illegal, but we are saying that in an industry where access is everything, where the right invitation can make or break a career, the question isn't just about what she knew, it's about what she saw and what she chose to ignore.
To not be involved with a famous singer, to not come out, here's the price. And that they're just selling to the individuals that are in those. This is what I heard. They're selling those videos. So if you're Tommy X, and Tommy X is a big, big movie star, and he was at some of the Diddy parties, he was in one of those bedrooms with 3 other men, and he's happily married to a woman, and blah. Tommy doesn't want that video to come out. He does not want it to come out.
And then there's the footage. Because while the world fixates on the Cassie Ventura tape, on the 1,000 bottles of what prosecutors allege wasn't baby oil, there's another collection of recordings that hasn't seen the light of day. The ones from Diddy's infamous freak-off sessions. The ones that allegedly involve other celebrities, other industry figures, other names that would send shockwaves through Hollywood if they ever surfaced. And according to sources close to the investigation, they're not just sitting in an evidence locker. They're being analyzed, cross-referenced, matched with testimonies from people who were there. People who, until now, have been too afraid to speak. But that's changing. Because when the stakes get this high, when the legal noose gets this tight, silence becomes a liability. And the people who once benefited from that silence, they're starting to realize that the only way to protect themselves is to talk.
With 50 Cent being directly involved, that also added credence to it. And then, everybody had saw Lil Rod come with his lawsuit previously, And then most of those instances had got thrown out. But some of them, you feel me, he got to get paid out for.
Now, let's bring it back to the Smiths. Because while the public fixates on the lawsuit, on the carefully crafted PR responses, there's another story unfolding behind the scenes. One that involves their children. Jaden and Willow have spent years in the spotlight, carefully shielded by their parents' team, their every move monitored, their every word scripted. But according to sources who've worked with the family, the real story isn't about their careers. It's about what they've seen, what they've heard, what they've allegedly been exposed to in a household where the rules were anything but conventional. And if we're looking for a reason why Jaden distanced himself from the family at 16, why Willow's music and public persona took such a sharp turn away from her parents' influence, we might not have to look much further than the environment they grew up in. Because when the line between personal and professional blurs, when the people you trust the most are the ones breaking the rules, the only way to survive is to get out. And that's exactly what they did. But here's the thing about traps. They're not just for the people at the top. They're for the people who enabled them. The managers who looked the other way, the publicists who spun the stories, the other celebrities who attended the parties, who benefited from the connections, who stayed silent because the alternative was too risky. And as the Diddy case unfolds, as the Smiths' legal battles intensify, those are the people who should be the most nervous. Because the moment one domino falls, the rest are sure to follow. And in an industry built on secrets, on favors, on the unspoken understanding that some things are better left unsaid, the real question isn't about who's guilty. It's about who's next. So tell us, how far do you think this goes? Who else is hiding in the shadows waiting for the spotlight to shift? And when the next name drops, will it be the one that finally breaks the dam? Drop your theories in the comments, hit that like button if you're ready for the truth, and don't forget to subscribe, because this story is far from over. And trust us, you won't want to miss what happens next. Stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, in Hollywood, the biggest secrets aren't the ones they tell you about, they're the ones they don't. Until next time.